Good evening, everyone. I'll be presenting on early postoperative retinal detachment, moderated by PB Sir. So, first, let us discuss some case scenarios, and later on, we'll move on to the management part of it. So, case one is a 65-year-old male patient who came with complaints of diminution of vision in the left eye since 1.5 months. He's a known case of diabetes and hypertension. So the vision in the right eye of the patient is 6 by 6 and 6, the IOP is 12, and in, in the left eye, the vision is 6 by 36 and 24. The intraocular pressure is 7 millimeters of mercury. The anterior segment examination was within normal limits. The patient was both eyes pseudophakic. On fundus examination in the right eye, there was a lattice degeneration present superiorly, which was then laser. Whereas in the left eye, we see a subtotal retinal detachment with opened up lattice with a break. Now, this patient underwent scleral buckling in the left eye. So this was the fundus picture of the patient at conclusion of the surgery. Here we see that the breaks there is flat on the buccal. There is no subretinal fluid at the conclusion, and subretinal fluid drainage was done with the scleral cut down technique. Now, when we see the postoperative day one of the patient, we see that there is accumulation of subretinal fluid inferiorly. However, the breaks are flat on the buccal. When we come to the postoperative day three, we see that the subretinal fluid has increased since the day one. It is reaching up to the break. But on postoperative day three, we started the patients on oral steroids. However, on postoperative day six, the subretinal fluid had increased more and it was communicating with the retinal break. So, this was the picture on postoperative day six. Here we see the buccal indent, the retinal break, and the subretinal fluid. So I would like to put up to the audience like how to proceed with this case further. This was a picture on postoperative day 6 of the patient.
Devrati,
I can see the brake is little lifted, which is probably communicating with the SRF. So in that case, maybe we can increase the indent of the buckle. That is one option, depending on the
this is a revision buckle.
yeah. This is one option, or otherwise we can go ahead.
Now we'll see another case. A 11-year-old male patient, he came with complaints of sudden diminution of vision in the right eye since 2 months. He had history of injury with the hand while playing. Now, in the right eye, the visual acuity at presentation was 6 by 36 and 36. The intraocular pressure was 18 millimeters of mercury, and this was the fundus picture. Now, here we see that there is a vertical retinal tear which is present temporally. A single retinal break is present, and the subretinal fluid is present, whereas the nasal half of the retina appears attached. In the left eye, the visual acuity was 6 by 18 and 6. The intraocular pressure was 14, and there were some lattice degenerations noted temporally, which were then lasered. Now, this patient, he also underwent scleral buckling in the right eye. So, the fundus at conclusion of the surgery was that the break was flat on the buccal, and there was shallow SRF which was present. Now, on post-operative day 1, the break it was flat on the buccal, whereas the shallow SRF had reduced. Now, on post-operative day 6, this was the picture of the patient of the right eye. Now, here we see that the braid is flat on the buccal. There is some SRF which is present just posterior to the buccal edge, and there is a retinal fold which is present. So, how should we go forward with this patient?
Okay, senior residents, anything needs to be done or just wait and watch? Quick answer.
Observe.
Or anyone, please feel free, any volunteer.
Add plus some laser maybe.
Where we should laser?
SRF I can. Sir, it's a retinal fold or SRF. I cannot make out if it is SRF. So I said maybe we can add some laser.
Okay, so second option is she want to do either laser. Okay, so next one, go ahead.
Okay, now we'll see the third case
Yeah,
scenario.
we'll come back to all this again.
Now, here we see a case of a 23-year-old male patient who came with diminution of vision in the right eye since 2 days. Now, on examination of the right eye, perception of light was present, and in the left eye, the patient has no perception of light. Left eye is status post lensectomy, vitrectomy, belt buckle, endolaser silicone oil injection, followed by silicone oil removal, followed by anti-glaucoma valve was inserted, then that was removed, and status post diode CPC. Now see the fundus picture of the right eye. Here we see that there is total retinal detachment which is present, posterior staphyloma is present, and a break is noted just nasal to the disc. Now this patient underwent vitrectomy, endolaser, and C3F8 gas injection in the right eye. So this was the fundus picture at the conclusion of the surgery. So the retinal break, it was well lasered. However, there was some subretinal fluid persistent over the posterior pole. Now, when we come to the post-operative day 1, here we see that the retinal breaks are flat. However, there is some persistent subretinal fluid. I decide to observe the patient. Now, when the patient presented at post-operative 6 weeks, here we see that the SRS, the subretinal fluid, has increased, and the break which was present, the nasal break, it has lifted up, and there is another break which is present in the supraronasal quadrant.
Probably this case, I think management is straightforward. We have to go in again, so there's no other question about it. So, and again, posterior pole, there was no pigmentation, so difficulty that to get a retinopexy that area. Okay, so we subsequently took for vitrectomy. We'll come back that again.
Now the case 4 scenario. Here is a 60-year-old female patient who came with complaints of gradual diminution of vision in the both eyes since 4 years. She's a known case of diabetes and hypertension. Now in the right eye, the visual acuity at presentation is 6/12 and 60. The intraocular pressure was 16 and patient had immature cataract. Whereas in the left eye, the vision is 6/24 and 12. The intraocular pressure was 16 and patient was pseudophakic. The patient had undergone phacoemulsification, intraocular lens implantation, vitrectomy, endolaser, and gas injection elsewhere 2 years back. Now on presentation, we see the fundus of the right eye. Here we see that a few laser marks are seen in the periphery. There is vitreous hemorrhage which is present. And there is a small fibrovascular proliferation which is seen just superotemporal to the disc. In the left eye, we see that there are 360-degree laser marks, some sclerosed vessels are present, a mild disc pallor is present, and there is a full thickness macular hole present. Now, when we did the OCT of the right eye, it showed that there is retinal detachment which is present at the macula. Now, so the patient underwent phacoemulsification, intraocular lens implantation, vitrectomy plus endolaser. Now, the traction over the retina it was relieved. However, no obvious breaks were noted during the surgery. Now, on post-operative day 1, there was some shallow subretinal fluid which is present over the posterior fold. The subretinal glasses was present. Now, on post-operative day 7, here we see that there is SRF which is present inferiorly. So, and a gas bubble which is present. So, what does it indicate? That the SRF has increased, or is it SRF which is persistent since the first day of the surgery?
Basically had a release traction, so retina was mobile. Intraoperatively, we could not find any break on the table. So assuming that it is a just release traction and mobile retina, no rheumatogenic component. So only air bubble. That air bubble also was because one of the bleeders who just tamponed temporarily for that. On a 7th post-op day, maybe inferior because of maybe sitting, or partly also other component SRF was more. Now we are not sure whether it's rheumatogenious, maybe some misbreak somewhere tiny, or exudative component because of laser, because of surgery-induced inflammation, or just because of subretinal bands holding on, because indicating again chronic detachment, and thick SRF, just retina is holding it on. So how to proceed? That's another one more question here. Basically, these are 4 different case scenarios. Each case was managed in a different way, and how the decision to manage the case was taken, probably subsequent. Now this presentation will go on.
So when we see the retinal detachment following the scleral buckle, so either there can be residual subretinal fluid, or there could be progressive reaccumulation of the subretinal fluid, or there could be increase in the subretinal fluid. Now, one thing we should remember, that presence of the subretinal fluid alone is not an indication for any revision surgery. So always analyze before jumping into conclusions. The answers, these questions need to be answered. Now, first in the primary surgery, whether it was a drainage, whether SRF drainage was done or a drainage was not done. Is there an open retinal break? Now, is the retinal break on the buccal, or is it posterior to the buccal indent? Is there any missed retinal break? Are the indents of the buccal in the right place? Now, is there fish mouthing of the retinal break? Now, are the retinal folds communicating the retinal tear and the posterior subretinal fluid? Were there any pre-existing PVR changes or subretinal gliosis? And what is the distribution of subretinal fluid in the post-operative period? That is it posterior to the buccal or on the buccal? Now, if you have answered these questions, then probably we need to intervene surgically. Now, another aspect that we should look at is the shifting fluid which is present, that changes with the head position. Was excessive cryotherapy done intraoperatively? And is there any vitreous haze present? And what is the nature of the SRF? Is it turbid or not? Now, that indicates probably there is some inflammatory component, and that could be a possible exudative retinal detachment. So, defer any early surgical intervention in these cases. You can give a trial of systemic corticosteroids with adequate dose of the steroids, and the subretinal fluid in such cases, it may take up to few weeks for reabsorption. Now, the first case which we see, here we see that the posterior edge of the break is lifted up, and there was progressive increase in the subretinal fluid despite giving corticosteroids for 4 days. So we decided to intervene in this patient. So the patient underwent a 0.3 ml of C3F8 gas, 100% injection, and was asked to maintain the right lateral position. So on post-operative day 1 of the gas injection, we see that the subretinal fluid head is reduced. Now the patient is being followed up and will come after 6 weeks for the checkup. Now the second case which we saw, where there was the retinal break was present and a retinal fold which we had seen. Now after 6 weeks, here we see that the CRAs are formed. There is no subretinal fluid, macula is well attached. So we had observed this patient and the retina is well attached. There is no subretinal fluid at 6 weeks. So now if we see the retinal detachment after vitrectomy, so what could be the probable causes for it? There can be an opening of the retinal breaks, new formation of new retinal breaks, any missed retinal breaks, if there's any persistent vitreous traction, if it's a long-standing retinal detachment, if any proliferative vitreoretinopathy changes are present, they're more than grade C, if there is any missed intrinsic contraction of the retina, and excessive cryotherapy or endolaser has been done. Now the case third which we saw, so the patient we had taken up for resurgery. He had undergone belt buckle endolaser and silicone oil injection. Now the brakes are well lasered, both the brakes. The silicone oil tamponade is given, and there is no subretinal fluid which is present. Now, if there is a retinal detachment post vitrectomy in diabetic tractional retinal detachment, now first we relieve the traction, the retina it becomes mobile. Now, if there are no obvious breaks seen, we'll observe the patient. If there is any break present, obviously we'll go for fluid gas exchange, then laser, and then give a tamponading agent. Now, if you're observing the patient, if there is any increase in the subretinal fluid, there could be two things. Either it could be an exudative component or there could be a missed break. Now, if the missed break is visible to us, we'll take up the patient for revision surgery. Now, if you are suspecting an exudative component, we'll observe the patient, give a trial of oral steroids. Now, when the patient is being observed, now if there could be either reduction in the subretinal fluid or there could be persistence or increase in the subretinal fluid. Now, if there is reduction in the subretinal fluid, that means it is probably an inflammatory component, that is exudative retinal detachment. We'll observe the patient and continue the same treatment. Now, in spite of giving oral steroids, if there is increase, first we need to check the dose of the oral steroids, whether the dose is adequate or low dose has been given. Now, if the patient is given adequate dose and there is increase in the subretinal fluid, we should suspect any missed breaks and we should go for revision surgery. If the patient is given low dose, we should adjust the dose and then again observe and again observe. Now, if the subretinal fluid resolves with increasing the dose of the steroids, that means it is an inflammatory component again. And if it does not, we should suspect any rheumatogenic component and take up the patient for revision surgery. Now, in the fourth case which we had seen, that there were no any obvious retinal breaks present. The traction over the retina was released, and this patient was seen in the sitting position. So, the SRF is seen more inferiorly, which gives an illusion of increase in the subretinal fluid in the post-operative period. So, we'll decided to observe the patient. Now, some points to remember. Now, post-scleral buccal, you should always analyze what is the cause of the subretinal fluid. It is important to differentiate between the leaking retinal hole, a missed hole, and what apparently is an exudative response to cryotherapy. Now, in a leaking retinal hole, the fluid, it is contiguous with the hole. In exudative fluid, the fluid is posterior to the buccal, and the holes, they can be flat on the buccal, and they're not in continuation with the fluid. Now here the fluid, it can be clear fluid. The choroidal details are recognizable. In exudative, the fluid can be turbid and so it is difficult to see the choroidal details. In leaking retinal hole, the fluid shifts slightly, whereas in exudative, there is marked shift of the fluid present. And associated choroidal detachment can be present in either of the situation. Now, the resolution of the subretinal fluid in the macular area after diabetic vitrectomy is slow and it might need a longer time to resolve completely. So, drainage might not always be necessary. My acknowledgements to everyone. Thank you.